On the challenges on South Korea's economy, I spoke to Phil Eskeland, Executive Director of the Korea Economic Institute of America, and I asked him about the impact of China's economic slowdown.
Korean exports to China decreased 9% in August, but Korea's exports to other trading partners have gone down too, so it's not solely as a result of the slowdown in China.
Korea themselves has kind of a very unique history when it comes to trade. They were also relied heavily on exports for a long, long time until their domestic sort of economy came into play more recently. And even then, the government was still trying to encourage more investors from actually within Korea, specifically some of the insurance companies and some of the pension funds, to keep reinvesting their assets, not overseas, but within Korea. So they've had kind of a similar challenge as China does, but on a much smaller scale. If you look at Korea as it is today and you think about all the things they did right and the things that maybe weren't so right, let's talk about what they did right and what actually worked.
What they did right was have a focus on economic development. It's an economic miracle that took place in Korea. What needs to happen now is less reliance on government support and more for the private sector, and particularly in the small business area.
But that growth has come at a big, steep price, and I'm talking about specifically personal debt. I mean, that has been a main focus in Korea. It's great to have all this growth, but if you're borrowing money for the growth, what's the end game here?
Well, they need to deal with the debt issue because it's not sustainable over the long term. So the idea is with the creative economy, you have more of an innovative economy where there's small businesses that develop new ideas and new products, something that hasn't been thought about anywhere else in the world. And you develop a more industry that can support people with good wages, and then they're not reliant on borrowing for their economic future.
The recent moves on the renminbi or the Chinese yuan, a lot of people are saying that that's ultimately going to have a significant negative impact on those countries that essentially compete on the export level because their stuff would be cheaper. Korea has to be one of them. It's, as you said, one of the major trading partners. Has there been an impact, and what are businesses telling you?
Yeah, there has been an impact. I mean, and not just Korea, but other countries as well in the region and even in the United States. But obviously, whenever a price increases for an export, it hurts your ability to sell in that market. But one of the interesting things to note is global value supply chains, and that Korea is involved deeply in China, in which 68% of its exports is through these supply chains. So I think it all nets out in the end, because any final Chinese assembled good that comes with Korean components, obviously the price would go up a little bit there. So it could serve as a benefit to Korea in terms of if it's too expensive to make in China, maybe they'll bring production back to Korea, or then Korea might have to look to other places.
You know, Korea is a big place for business, but it's also a big place for big businesses. And there's criticism that these businesses are so big they essentially control the entire landscape, and there's no room for any competitors coming. I mean, I don't know, how do you ever compete with LG and Samsung, for example? I mean, they run the whole entire country, basically. Do you think there needs to be more competition in the form of, I guess, less monopolistic companies?
That's a whole initiative of President Park Geun-hye in terms of the creative or innovative economy. Something these other big companies aren't doing, specializing in that, and then hopefully from those small companies you get jobs, and then those will get to be big companies. But yeah, it's not sustainable over the long term to have big companies dominate the economic sector like that, because job growth, innovation, and economic growth come from the small business sector.